Are you intrigued by the glamorous world of Hollywood celebrities? From fame and fortune to constant scrutiny, the life of a celebrity is never dull. But what happens when the spotlight turns to scandal? Join us as we delve into the juicy past of the golden age of Hollywood, uncovering the scandals that shocked the world and brought some of the biggest stars to their knees. From forbidden romances to shocking betrayals, these stories will keep you on the edge of your seat. Watch till the end of this video to discover the top 10 most salacious moments of Hollywood's golden age that nobody knew. Number 10. Joan Crawford porn scandal. Joan Crawford was a big star at MGM. People knew that she wanted to get ahead in her career and would sometimes do mean things to get there. In 1945, she won an Oscar for her lead role in the movie Mildred Pierce. She was also nominated for 2 other Oscars and won a lot of other awards. Crawford was Hollywood gold. This must have made the rumors that she started her career by acting in pornographic films a little awkward. People say that she was in a movie called Velvet Lips. At one point, her brother sold copies to whomever paid the most money. There are no copies of the movie available, which may be because studio fixers worked hard to make sure the stars didn't get embarrassed by their mistakes. Douglas Fairbanks Jr., who was Crawford's first husband, said that she was blackmailed over the films and even got threatening phone calls while they were on their honeymoon. A film was sent to the studio, but the company lawyer said that the woman in the film wasn't Crawford. Right up to the end of her life, she continued to deny ever having been in a porn film. But her FBI file, because, McCarthy and all that, seems to show that the film did exist. Crawford's biographers say that, quote, a film of Crawford in compromising positions was passed around to be used at smokers, which are men-only stag parties. They also said that the file may contain proof that the studio paid Crawford's brother up to $100,000 to stop him from leaking the film. This is supported by strange payments Crawford made to the studio, which are said to be repayment for the money she got from blackmail. Even after Crawford died, her family problems didn't go away. Her daughter, whom Crawford had cut off from her inheritance, wrote a tell-all book called Mommy Dearest, which showed the star in a whole new light. Number 9. Jean Harlow was forced to marry. Jean Harlow was the original blonde bombshell. After being in Howard Hughes' Hell's Angels, she became a big star. It's safe to say that Harlow's life was full of ups and downs. She married her first husband on January 18, 1927, when she was just 15 years old. They split up a few years later. Her second husband was accidentally killed by a gunshot, but many people believe she killed him. Then she had an affair with a married boxer. When the scandal was about to get out, the studio made her marry Harold Rawson, who was a cinematographer. But the marriage was just for show, and they got a divorce quietly after a few months when the scandal was forgotten. William Powell was the man Harlow wanted to marry. In 1935, she met him on the set of Reckless and fell in love with him. She wanted to get married, have a family, and stop acting. But Powell didn't want to do anything crazy. He had just split up with Carole Lombard and thought that people might not like it if he got married again so soon. He also made it clear that he never wanted any children. But Powell's care could only go so far, and Harlow soon found out she was pregnant. Knowing that he did not want children and that the studio would never tolerate an unmarried mother, Harlow aborted the baby that she wanted and never told Powell what happened. Number 8. William Randolph Hearst tried to kill Charlie Chaplin. William Randolph Hearst owned businesses, ran for office, and ran newspapers. In fact, he was a tycoon who ran the biggest newspaper business in the world. He was also one of the most powerful people in America and the model for Orson Welles' masterpiece, Citizen Kane. Hearst was known for being cruel, short-tempered, and sometimes just plain mean. So it's safe to say that he wouldn't have been happy to hear that his mistress was having an affair. He believed that Marion Davies and Charlie Chaplin were sleeping together. Hearst didn't talk to Chaplin directly. Instead, he invited Chaplin and a number of other movie stars to join him on his yacht. This must have made it difficult to talk about small things. Now, Thomas Ince was a Hollywood producer whose specialty was making Western movies. His studio was making money for a while, but then it started to fail. Ince got on Hearst's yacht with the hope that the trip would help him find investors. It did. The official explanation for Ince's death, which Hearst's newspapers almost certainly printed too quickly, was that he had digestive problems that killed him, even though he was taken to the hospital quickly. Ince's body was cremated right away. Even though Hearst worked hard to keep the news about Ince's death from getting out, rumors kept spreading that Hearst had shot at Chaplin, missed, and killed Ince instead. The Los Angeles Times ran the headline, "Movie producer shot on Hearst yacht," but it was quickly taken down and the shooting was not mentioned in any later editions. A secretary on the yacht was said to have seen Ince bleeding from a head wound caused by a bullet. Ince's wife went on an unexpected trip across Europe and was therefore unavailable for comment. Number 7. Patricia Douglas was raped. Patricia Douglas wanted to be famous. She was asked to try out for MGM Studios when she was just 20. She didn't know it, but the audition was actually a party for MGM's sales executives thrown by Louis B. Mayer. When Douglas went to the party, it had already been going on for 3 days. She thought this could be her big break. Douglas was not wise about the world. She was a Missouri girl from Kansas City who wanted to be a star. There were other girls there too. Around 300 drunk delegates were entertained by about 120 young women who were brought there by bus. The girls were told they would get a hot meal and payment of $7.50 for the entire day. They wore cowboy hats, short skirts, and boots. The girls got their makeup done and were told to wait on the set, but they still thought they were doing a screen test. They waited for their cue because they knew the film business was hard, and they wanted to be professionals. However, the sales executives believed that the girls were a different sort of professional altogether. The women had no way to get away because they didn't have cars or phones. They had to fight off the men as best they could. Douglas was brutally raped. She didn't want to be bought off like other people in Hollywood, so she chose to press charges against MGM salesman David Ross. MGM hired the Pinkerton Detective Agency to find out bad things about Douglas. When they couldn't find any, they forced people to say she was a promiscuous woman with a disease that was spread through sexual contact. At first, a parking lot worker said he had seen her being attacked, but he later changed his mind. After that, his children said that what he said later was not true. Douglas's reputation was ruined, and the person who raped her got away with it. Number 6. Tallulah Bankhead had multiple abortions. Tallulah Bankhead was as well known for her sex life in Hollywood as she was for her beauty outside of it. She allegedly had 185 notches on her bedpost at one point and was still counting. Bankhead had 4 abortions by the time she turned 30 because she knew the studios wouldn't stand for her to have a child. But she wasn't the only one. These studios had set up protocols for this kind of situation and booked women into hospitals under fake names for unclear procedures. They could only be seen by their own doctors, and no visitors were allowed. Bankhead was one of the few people who went to the hospital on a regular basis. She was married for a short time to a man who asked her because, quote, no one else had ever asked. It was short-lived. Her sexuality was well known. She slept with both men and women, and often did so in semi-public places. She also made it a habit to open her door to visitors while she was naked. She is even said to have flashed the audience in a Broadway play, which made a priest and 3 nuns leave the theater. Bankhead is said to have regretted having abortions when she was unable to have children because of a hysterectomy she had to get rid of gonorrhea. Number 5. Errol Flynn was a pervert. There is no hiding the fact that Errol Flynn had a strong sexual appetite. Following Flynn's prosecution for the statutory rape of 2 girls, the expression "in like Flynn" became increasingly popular. Flynn was found not guilty on all counts, and his reputation as a womanizer only grew stronger as a result of the trial. After beginning his career in Hollywood by guiding a film team down a river while evading arrows from headhunters and crocodiles, Flynn eventually became a successful actor. He was discovered, and the producers of the remake of Mutiny on the Bounty gave him a part in the production. Other rumors, in addition to the one about Flynn's liking for underage girls, circulated about him wherever he went. It is reported that he became sexually active when he was just 10 years old. In his bedroom, he allegedly had a two-way mirror placed, while another was supposedly installed in the bathroom. Even though he was notorious for engaging in sexual experiments while under the influence of alcohol and drugs, the public's passion for him remained unchanged. A heart attack took Flynn's life when he was just 50 years old. It is reported that the coroners at the inquest took a number of genital warts as mementos from his body when they examined it. Number 4. Judy Garland was forced to take drugs. In 1935, when Judy Garland was just a teenager, an MGM scout found her. Her acting and singing skills were praised, but not her physical appearance. She started working 6 days a week, up to 18 hours a day after being signed, and her first parts were as girl next door types. Her studio provided her with amphetamines to keep her going strong and her figure in check. When it was time for her to go home, she was given sleeping medications. Garland tied the knot at the age of 19 against the desires of the studio, and she was immediately sent back to work. When she got pregnant, they arranged for her to have an abortion. Judy Garland was an amphetamine addict by the time she started filming Meet Me in St. Louis in her early 20s. The studio protected her by barring other people from getting too close. When she called in sick, they took money out of her paycheck to cover the cost of not having her there. At one point, Garland checked into a hospital to learn how to eat and sleep again. But when she returned to the public eye, studio executives pushed for her to undergo another weight loss program, and she immediately continued taking the pills. Garland's studios dropped her as her life became increasingly chaotic. At 47 years old, she fatally overdosed on barbiturates. Number 3. Fatty Arbuckle. In 1921, Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle was at the height of his career as a Hollywood star and was considered to be among the most popular. A whopping $1 million was added to his annual take-home salary. Arbuckle celebrated Labor Day by going to the posh St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco, where an invitation-only banquet was held for the city's most prominent citizens. At the gathering was also a famous actress by the name of Virginia Rapay. When the visitors turned to see what was going on, they realized Arbuckle had left the area before they could ask him what was going on since they had heard screaming. According to Arbuckle's pals, the actress was fully clothed when they entered the room. However, according to her friends, Arbuckle had sexually assaulted her. Virginia Rapay passed away the next day from a ruptured bladder, despite the fact that they were unable to locate any trace of a sexual assault on her body. Even though Arbuckle rejected all of the charges, the public and the press did not believe him. Everyone believed he was guilty of the crime and didn't want him to walk free after doing such a heinous act. After the first 2 trials ended in mistrials, the man was finally put on trial a 3rd time. But this time, he was found not guilty. The actor's situation was hopeless because the damage had already been done. Because of the rejection he received from the general people, Fatty Arbuckle was essentially barred from performing for over a decade. In 1933, he was given the opportunity to take on a new contract, but he passed away from a heart attack before he could begin work. Clearly, this was long before the Me Too movement. Number 2. Peg Entwistle. It is entirely possible that the most well-known landmark in the United States is the Hollywood sign. Aspiring actors from all across the world can take heart from the symbol it represents. However, in the 1930s, it was the location of the suicide of an actress who had given up all hope of a better future. Peg Entwistle was unhappy and disappointed with her job at one point, and she ultimately committed suicide by jumping off the Hollywood sign. The filming of the actress's role in David O. Selznick's 13 Women had just come to a successful conclusion at the time. But when she found out that her part was cut from the movie, she wrote a suicide note and tragically ended her own life. As soon as the industry learned about her tragic passing, they organized an extravagant burial service for her, inviting a number of famous people to attend. While the media was busy trying to make dramatic stories out of news of her death, they did not stop talking about how talented she was. Her passing did shake things up in Hollywood, despite the fact that it was not really a scandal. The entertainment industry made it socially acceptable to talk about suicide prevention for the first time, a subject that was previously taboo. Even in the 21st century, people continue to talk about how she passed away. In 2014, a gathering of 100 movie lovers took place in Hollywood with the purpose of seeing the film 13 Women in order to raise both awareness and funds for the cause of suicide prevention. Ultimately, the film only included 4 minutes with her on screen. Number 1. Sadistic Charlie Chaplin's obsession with teen girls. Although Charlie Chaplin's slapstick humor earned him international fame, few are aware that he also turned the lives of his teenage brides into a real-life comedy. He was often harsh to them. A film from 1940 has Chaplin as the dictatorial tyrant Hitler. Not only do Chaplin and Hitler both have terrible facial hair, but they also share many of history's undervalued psychological qualities, such as cruelty. His inability to trust women sprang from a deep-seated fear of rejection and loss, and it manifested itself at the smallest provocation. Regrettably, some of these women gave birth to Chaplin's children, bearing the brunt of his violence. They fell victim to his egocentric, abusive, and vicious nature. In explosive divorce proceedings, Lita Gray, Charlie Chaplin's teenage bride, claimed that Chaplin had seduced her, gotten her pregnant, and made degrading sexual demands of her. According to the Times of London, an actual copy of Gray's divorce papers from 1927 have surfaced. The actress was just 15 when Chaplin initially allegedly seduced her. The 50-page paper was found in an abandoned LA bank. Gray had known Chaplin since she was 8, and she starred in The Kid a few years later. When the girl, then 16, refused to comply with Chaplin's demands that she get an abortion, her mother allegedly threatened to call the police, and thus the couple were married. Despite her young age, she married him in 1924. In addition, she stated that Chaplin had sexual demands that were, quote, revolting, demeaning, and disgusting, and that he had her commit actions that were against the law in California during the 1920s, acts that he claimed to have done with, quote, 5 prominent moving picture ladies before their marriage. One of these desires was that Gray have a threesome with another woman. Gray's astonishing testimony led to the then largest divorce payment in history, totaling $825,000. Gray went on to marry 3 more times and died in 1995. Chaplin married twice more, died at age 88 in 1977, and claimed to have had sex with almost 2,000 women throughout his lifetime. His love life was a disaster since he didn't know how to trust or appreciate women, and yet he could never quit being smitten by innocent teenagers. Believe it or not, old Hollywood scandals were crazier than the ones we see now. From secret love affairs to murder, I'm sure these scandals have left you breathless. Now it's time to hear from you. Which of these scandals surprised you the most? Were any of your favorite actors mentioned on this list? Let us know down below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.